Donald Trump and the federal appellate judges that support him don't want to stop the bashing of federal judges, the violence and intimidation threats to make them change their decisions as the judiciary and law firms continue to be under attack in the Trump administration. How do I know that? Because one of the leading candidates to be a Supreme Court justice under Donald Trump, Judge James Ho out of the Fifth Circuit, he dropped out of the Federal Judges Association, a bipartisan commission made up of federal judges headed by Judge Michelle Childs, because he didn't like the statement that they put out, which was pretty plain vanilla, pretty agnostic about the fact that calling out intimidation and threats against the judiciary. So the only way I can interpret it is that Donald Trump and those around him are in favor of the full frontal assault on the judiciary, the rule of law, and on judges and law firms. No other way to interpret it. And James Ho is leading the charge. I think it disqualifies him for ever being a Supreme Court justice. And the fact that he dropped out of this organization, I'll cover it right here on Legal AF and this YouTube channel. James Ho has been trying out for the United States Supreme Court for a long time. There's two judges in particular on the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which sits in New Orleans, covers Texas and Louisiana. It's the favored court and favored appellate court of MAGA and Donald Trump. Andrew Oldham and James Ho, Federalist, right-wing, MAGA, Heritage Foundation. Need I go on? And that's how they write. They are in favor of judicial activism. They are in favor of right-wing policies being implemented from the bench. They are in favor of the unitary president model, which gives Donald Trump, but probably only Donald Trump, unlimited, unfettered imperial power. And they think that the courts are not equipped to stop him and shouldn't stop him at all, except when there's a Democrat in office. I find it high contradiction of thought. And it ends up being, at the end of the day, James Ho and his positions is nothing more than hypocrisy incarnate. He had no problem when all the bashing was going on by Donald Trump of all the federal and state judges that were responsible for his state and criminal cases. I mean, how much did we have? I mean, every day we had to hear the attacks of Donald Trump on Judge Engoron in New York, presiding over his $450 million fraud case. We had to hear about his bashing of Judge Merchan, the criminal judge, over his 34-count felony conviction, and his wife and his daughter, and Judge Engoron's daughter and wife, and his law clerk, and Judge Chutkin in the federal court. It got so bad that even Chief Justice Roberts of the United States Supreme Court in January, when he issued his State of the Judiciary report, commented on the rising tide and the threats to the judiciary. So what was the big deal then? Why did Judge Ho decide to resign? Let me just read to you from the statement that he found to be so sanctimonious that he had to resign. Again, the president of the Federal Judges Association is Judge Michelle Childs from South Carolina. She was, Lindsey Graham wanted her to be on the United States Supreme Court through Joe Biden. He picked Ketanji Brown Jackson instead, but I don't think this is going to make Lindsey Graham happy either, that she's been indirectly attacked. She sent out an email last week to the members, which are judges, saying that the judiciary faces growing threats, including violence, intimidation, disinformation, and unprecedented impeachments that challenge its independence. That's Elon Musk on behalf of Donald Trump, calling for increased impeachments of federal judges where he doesn't like their opinions. The Federal Judges Association then released a lengthier statement that I'll quote as follows. Recent events are clear and an urgent reminder that federal judges play a crucial role in upholding our democracy as guardians of the rule of law. Doesn't seem to be anything objectionable there to a person who is not biased like Judge Ho or Donald Trump. In the history of our republic, the statement went on. This is the statement that led Ho to leave the association, okay? You tell me, put up your hand and comment when you hear something objectionable that any kind of just agnostic, like-minded person, independent person would find objectionable. Here we go. In the history of our republic, there has always been tension between the three separate and equal branches of the federal government. including criticism of judicial interpretations. The FJA, which is the Federal Judges Association, strives to ensure that accurate information is shared with all Americans regarding the role of the judiciary to interpret the U.S. Constitution, to impartially interpret the laws that have been created by the U.S. Congress and enforced by the executive branch. Again, no criticism of Donald Trump. Specific decisions issued by judges are not formed from individual opinions, but rather are prepared against evaluation of what the law on the books requires. They then cited to Justice Roberts, Chief Justice Roberts, who has commented recently on the rise in criticism, threats, and violence aimed at members of the judiciary. Irresponsible rhetoric, the statement continued, the one that led Ho to pull the plug on his membership. Irresponsible rhetoric shrouded in disinformation undermines the public's confidence that our justice system can fulfill its constitutional duties. Again, put up your hands in comments where you find something objectionable that an independent, reasonable person would find objectionable. The security of federal judges and those serving in the judicial branch of our government is fundamental to their ability to uphold the rule of law and to fulfill the constitutional duty without fear or undue influence. Any erosion in the independence of the judiciary is a threat to our Constitution and to democratic rule of law. Pretty easy to agree with so far. Ensuring judicial security is not just about protecting individuals, it's about preserving the integrity of our legal system and the public's trust in an impartial judiciary. Now, Judge Ho resigned, but maybe he should have waited to see Donald Trump in his rambling, incoherent, abusive attack of the judiciary during his Department of Justice address, where he claimed that he was the chief legal officer, chief law enforcement officer of the country, sort of sidelining the attorney general in his administration, because that's what they believe in the unitary branch, right? Now the jailed has become the jailer. I am now the chief law enforcement officer. That should send a chill down anybody's spine. But let's watch this clip of him continuing to bash the judiciary. Maybe Judge Ho should have waited. Let's run the clip.
And Emil know this very well. We had an amazing judge in Florida, and her name is Eileen Cannon. And I didn't know her. I still don't know her. I don't believe I ever spoke to her, even during the trial. But I did appoint her, federal judge. And these fake lawyers, these horrible human beings, were hitting her so hard, public relations-wise. They were playing the ref. I don't think it's legal. I don't think it's legal. They might as well go out and just shout it in a courthouse. They were saying she was slow, she wasn't smart, she was totally biased, she loved Trump. I didn't know her, other than I saw her the couple of days that I was in court, and I thought her decorum was amazing.
Now, this has gotten the attention of, again, independent-minded people who are focused on the rule of law in a nonpartisan way. Donald Trump's playbook so far is himself, or through his proxies, including Elon Musk, to attack the independence of the judiciary, to attack the law firms that represent clients and are duty-bound and ethically bound by the rules of professional responsibility and their oath taken as officers of the court to represent people in our adversarial system. Donald Trump doesn't like lawyers that represent people against him and is going to try to go after them. Here's Judge Michael Luttig, a friend of the podcast. We're going to get him on for an interview soon. Former Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals judge, one of the co-founders of the Rule of Law Society, a Federalist Society member, no doubt, was a Republican until recently. Here's what he had to say about Donald Trump's attacks on the rule of law and on law firms.
He had essentially declared war on the rule of law. And in the first 50 days of his administration, he has opened that war on multiple fronts across the country, as your viewers know. In the past several weeks, however, he's really launched a full frontal assault on the Constitution, the rule of law, our system of justice, and the entire legal profession. The 1.2 million lawyers in this country are the trustees, if you will, of the rule of law, with the federal judiciary being the constitutional guardian of the rule of law. In these latest executive orders by the president, executive orders that targeted two of the most prestigious law firms in America, Perkins Coie and Covington and Burling, targeting them, as you said, because they had represented clients in the past who the president just didn't like, is one of the most sinister of the executive orders that the president has entered to date, of the many that we expect him to enter in the coming days. And he followed these executive orders with an interview on Fox News, I believe, where he said that he is going to go after a large number of other law firms across the country, and we can expect him to make good on that promise. But it's the fact that he is doing this, in retaliation and retribution for these firms representing the clients that they have.
Now, here's what Judge Ho had to say on his way out. First, he says, I'll just paraphrase here. First, he says, well, I didn't hear this email didn't go out when there were attacks on the right-wing Republicans of the Supreme Court, like Alito, Thomas, and Roberts. Again, he's trying out for the Supreme Court. Actually, there were plenty of people that said that was inappropriate, including here on Legal AF and on the Midas Touch Network. I want to see them removed and have a president of my choosing put new people in, but I don't want to see them removed in a criminal way or in a murderous way. And nobody on our party wants that either. And Chief Justice Roberts is responsible for policing the Supreme Court. Supreme Court is not a part of the federal association, the Federal Judges Association, by choice. They're not a part of the ethics code that governs federal judges. They stand alone. They say they're infallible. They say they are the Supreme Court. So it's up to Roberts, which he's done as recently as January in his own statement, to come out and protect them and rest of us as well. Nobody sat. That is a canard. That is a lie. Nobody in independent, moderate, free-thinking people or Democrats, nobody came out in favor of assassinations of federal judges. That's ridiculous. So that was his first argument. Why are we doing it now? Why not when it was before? I don't know, because 120 cases have been filed against this administration in the first 60 days. We've got 50 preliminary injunctions because we got an out-of-control president who's lurching from one constitutional crisis to another, who's trying to topple the government from within, who's using people like Elon Musk to go after federal judges. Yeah, maybe now is the time for the Federal Judges Association to take a position. Here's what Ho said. I was very surprised by the statement. What about it? I just read you the statement. What about it was surprising? I was very surprised by the statement, and the next morning I sent an email to resign. I researched for myself, and I also asked the association if they ever issued any such statement when Justice Thomas received attacks, or Alito or Kavanaugh dealt with an assassination attempt. We've had federal district judges in Texas and in Florida as well, I'm sure other states, but those are the ones that come to mind immediately. All face the kind of things that the statement was complaining about and more. Did we see the statements in 2024 or 2023 or 2022? From what I can tell, no. I don't know. I don't understand what's the point. So because the media covered that story at the time, people spoke out against it, including the American Bar Association. The Supreme Court spoke out against it in their statement. There wasn't enough speaking out about it, and so that has to bound and gag the Federal Judges Association from talking about it now. Judge Ho went on. You can't say that you're in favor of judicial independence only when it comes to decisions that you like. That's not protecting the judiciary. That's politicizing the judiciary. Because one of the two things turns out to be true when you're selective in this way. And either of these options, I think, is a bad thing. Option one is you're lying, that you don't actually care about these principles. So you're telling the world essentially you're not seriously committed to judicial independence. The alternative is even worse. You're telling the truth. You do care about the principle, And I think this concept applies to a lot of things. If you're telling the truth, you really care about this principle, but there are just some people whose views are so anathema to you that you think you are worthy of this principle, that you don't think you're worthy of the principle you expound upon. I don't know. He's tongue-tied. I'm tongue-tied. I don't know what he's talking about. Look. I get he's doing a tryout for the United States Supreme Court, and if he can jump ahead of somebody like Judge Cannon, who you just heard Donald Trump extol the virtue of, good luck. But don't stand here and look my audience in the eye and tell them that you're so offended by an email calling for judicial independence and for stop the attacks on the judicial branch that you needed to resign in a noisy way so that Fox News would cover it. Yeah. I'm going to continue to follow everything about James Ho. We're going to hear a lot about James Ho, I think, in the coming months, especially if there's an opening on the United States Supreme Court. And I wanted to bring this to your attention right now. Thanks for being here on Legal AF. I'm Michael Popok. Until my next report. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.